Cybersecurity isn't just growing, it's on fire. Global spending is set to surge from $265 billion today to nearly $400 billion by 2028. Ransomware hit 72% of large companies last year, and the average data breach now costs nearly $5 million. Some of these stocks are set to grow by 30% plus a year, backed by AI-powered platforms, autonomous security agents, and will make you rich. I'll show you the 5 companies dominating the fastest growing segments of cybersecurity and how one stock made me $53,000, doubling my money with a 109% return. But not every stock is going to double your money or more, so I'm going to open up the vault and show you the research that finds the best stocks. And Nation, I've highlighted these stocks before, so you know why cybersecurity is my #1 growth theme over the next decade. Because cybersecurity demand isn't just growing, it is exploding. The attack surface, that's the industry term for the different places a hack can happen. And while companies used to operate inside a secure network perimeter, now the network is everywhere. Users are remote, apps are in the cloud, and data is scattered across devices and platforms. That shift has made identity, endpoint, and cloud security mission critical, and budgets are following that threat. And add to that the growing cost of failure. In 2024, the average data breach cost nearly $5 million, and ransomware attacks hit 72% of large companies. Companies don't just want better protection, they need it. Cybersecurity spending is growing at a double-digit clip and expected to hit nearly $400 billion by 2028, up from just $265 billion today. In fact, security now makes up just under 7% of total IT budgets. That number is steadily climbing as CIOs rank it among their top 3 priorities year after year. And now, why is this my favorite growth theme against AI, quantum, stablecoins, all the other themes that could explode over the next decade? Because not only is cybersecurity stock set to return that 30% and more every year, they're going to do it in any market. It's one of the few areas where companies do not cut their spending because they can't cut cybersecurity spending, and it's going to cost you even more, billions in hacks. So we're going to see those budgets grow and the revenue for these 5 stocks continue to boom. I'll show you how to analyze these later, but let's get started with my favorite all-around stock in the theme, Palo Alto Networks, ticker PANW. That's because if there's one company that defines cybersecurity, just one stock, it is Palo Alto. Unlike most players who dominate a niche, Palo Alto is building an empire across every major segment: cloud security, endpoint protection, SASE, SIEM, and even traditional firewalls. And that platform approach is key to its strategy. Rather than selling point solutions, Palo Alto has consolidated offerings into comprehensive suites like Prisma for SASE and cloud security, Cortex XSIAM for analytics, and AI-driven operations. That means customers aren't just buying individual tools, they're standardizing entire security stacks on the Palo Alto network. And that strategy is working. Next-gen security recurring revenue, ARR, is growing over 30% year over year, with a surge in deals over $5 million recently. Its data-driven XSIAM platform is growing even faster, over 200%. And put all this together, and Palo Alto will succeed no matter what the future looks like. Now, that said, the company doesn't have quite the growth of some of these other stocks that we'll look at, but that $133 billion market cap makes it the powerhouse in this group. It's delivering with an 11% operating margin, the second best company at converting those sales into profits. It's also the 3rd cheapest stock on a price-to-earnings basis, and when adjusted for that growth. Important in a growth theme that has become ridiculously expensive. And I know that is a lot of investing jargon, but Nation, investing is a hell of a lot more than just buying what some Yahoo with a camera and a YouTube channel tells you to buy. Finding the best stocks means digging deep into the research, both the numbers and who in the space has that competitive advantage to keep driving those numbers. And so when looking at fundamentals to compare those stocks, there are 3 that I'm focusing on immediately: revenue growth, operating margin or profitability, and valuation in that price-to-earnings ratio. Revenue growth is the key measure that keeps growth stocks like these running higher. How fast is the company grabbing sales in this runaway opportunity? Here we can look to analyst forecasts for next year over last year to find a 2-year pace of growth and see Palo Alto is forecast to book sales of $10.5 billion from just $8 billion last year. But then a company has to be able to convert those sales into profits, and you and the nation know the operating margin is my favorite measure for that profitability. How well does management turn revenue into its earnings? Here on the income statement, we see the top-line revenue over $8.8 billion for Palo Alto. Lower down, we can find the operating income, the sales left over after paying for cost of goods and operating expenses, of $984 million, and an operating margin of 11%. But then even a great stock can be a loser at the wrong price, and that unstoppable growth in cybersecurity has made these stocks extremely expensive. At over $201 per share for Palo Alto and recording earnings of $2.84 per share, investors are paying $70 for every dollar in earnings to buy this stock. And I realize that high price to earnings can scare off a lot of investors. Hell, I know I avoided the group for years because I thought they were just too damn expensive. But folks, for this kind of growth, with sales up 20% a year and more for decades plus, these stocks will always trade at a premium and look expensive. That's just something I had to get over myself, adjusting those valuations for growth. So dividing the PE ratio by the earnings growth to find the best deals. And I'm up 109% on my biggest cybersecurity holding, a profit of $53,000 that I'll show you later. I want to get back to our list, so I'm going to show you the most important piece of analysis later, breaking the cybersecurity theme into its different segments and which stocks have that durable competitive advantage in each. Back to our list with by far the most profitable cyber stock out there, Fortinet Inc., ticker FTNT. Fortinet has long been a dominant force in network security, especially firewalls and that on-premises hardware. It's built one of the largest installed base in the industry, over 600,000 firewall devices, many of which are approaching end of life. That alone sets it up for a $400 to $450 million refresh opportunity just over the next 2 years. Now, because that legacy firewall and hardware segment is slower growth, Fortinet is expanding into SASE and unified security with its SD-WAN, where over 70% of its customers are already partially onboarded. While recent results have lagged its peers, the company's best-in-class profitability is going to produce that cash flow to develop this growth engine. I'll show you in the segment research next that Fortinet's firewall segment of cybersecurity is the slowest growth in the industry, which explains that slower revenue pace for FTNT. Still though, against that slower pace of growth, we have a company converting almost a third of its revenue into profits, an unimaginable profitability for these other stocks. That gives the company cash to reinvest in its cloud and SASE segments. I top it off with shares trading at the second cheapest on the list, and it's definitely one to watch. Those first two are good all-around stocks to buy based on their fundamentals, just going off those numbers. But if you want those returns of 100% and more, double your money, that's where even deeper research comes in because not all cybersecurity is created equal. The industry is made up of multiple segments, each solving a different piece of the security puzzle, each with a different share of a $100 billion plus market, and each growing at different speeds. There's cloud security here, which protects data and applications hosted in public and private clouds. You've got endpoint protection, which locks down individual devices. Identity management controls who gets access to what. SASE merges networking and security for remote users. Then there's SIEM, which ties it all together by analyzing data and spotting threats across systems. Now, why does this matter if the entire cybersecurity industry is set to boom? Because understanding which companies lead in each segment going to tell us where the real growth is. A company dominating firewall and hardware might be growing steadily, but if cloud security and SASE is expected to grow 15% a year and they're nowhere near it, it's like betting the donkey in a horse race. It's also going to help you see through the hype. Cybersecurity as a whole is expected to grow nearly 10% a year through the end of the decade, reaching almost $400 billion just by 2028. But that's an average. Segments like cloud security and zero trust access are expected to grow much faster, 13 to 18% annually, while more mature areas like firewalls might barely clear 3 to 5%. So if, like most investors out there, you were just following those numbers, investing in the stocks only based on the fundamentals, you'd be missing out on the real growth, the opportunity to get your 10 and 20 times your money, instead of just those market returns with the rest of the herd. I want to get back to our list, but I'm going to show you where each company plays and who dominates the fastest growing segments along with the valuations at the end of this video, so make sure you stick around for that. Shares of Okta, ticker OKTA, haven't done much over the last year, but this company's positioning sets it up for something special. That's because when it comes to identity and access management, IAM, Okta is one of only 2 true category leaders, and it arguably stands alone in its singular, pure-play focus. While most cybersecurity firms are building out broad platforms, Okta is laser-focused on helping organizations securely manage who gets access to what and under what conditions. And in a world where remote work, cloud apps, and third-party integrations are exploding, that mission has never been more critical. But what sets Okta apart is its vendor-agnostic platform. Unlike competitors tied to broader software ecosystems, Okta integrates seamlessly across Microsoft, Google, Amazon, really any system out there. This makes it the preferred choice for organizations operating in hybrid or multi-cloud environments, especially enterprises that don't want to be locked into a single vendor stack. And that singular focus has turned into a competitive advantage with consistent growth in the 100,000 and 1 million customer base year after year, while expanding usage through governance and workflow automation tools. Now, Okta is expected to post the slowest growth among the cybersecurity stocks, which would normally make it a non-starter for me. But this one has that secret weapon I found in the deeper segment-level research. Okta is the only company besides Palo Alto really competing in that identity and access management segment. And while the segment isn't blowing the doors off with revenue growth of just 9 to 12%, the lack of more competition in the space makes me think that Okta can carve out that niche and reward its investors. But then you've got to ask yourself, why haven't the shares done much over the last year and really since 2021? And it's because that singular focus, while it is a competitive advantage, is also a weakness to growth. While other cybersecurity stocks can cross-sell vendors into a suite of products across the cybersecurity segments from cloud to SASE and to endpoint, Okta only has that identity and access management. Now, it has that locked in and does a great job, but that's all she wrote. Now, long-term, identity is a core pillar of cybersecurity, so the company is always going to have that moat and revenue growth. But honestly, what I think ends up happening here is one of these other companies offers management at just a buyout it can't refuse, and Okta is acquired for its advantage in this segment. It's going to be a giant return when that deal is made, but could be middling returns until then. We'll get back to those cybersecurity stocks to buy, but if you want to see the 5 stocks I'm buying for the next 30 years, my forever stocks, look for the link I'll leave in the description below. It's a free report I put together with the Motley Fool, some of the biggest stocks in my portfolio. These are the stocks I'm following in major multi-year themes, with one of the picks up 100% and the group up an average 94% last year alone. That report is totally free. You're going to see the first stock immediately, and they'll email you the full report with the other stocks. It's an easy way to support the Let's Talk Money community and see some of my favorite stocks to buy, so look for that link below. Back to our list of stocks to buy, though, and one of my favorites, Zscaler, ticker ZS, which revolutionized the industry and is up 74% this year alone. Zscaler revolutionized cybersecurity when it was founded in 2007, built in a cloud-first era, and blew up the legacy hardware approach. The company established the Zero Trust cloud-native security architecture that doesn't just adapt to the future, it defines it. In cloud security, the Zscaler Zero Trust Exchange now inspects over 500 billion transactions a day, a scale unmatched in the industry. Handling that kind of volume gives Zscaler unique visibility and insights to detect emerging threats across millions of environments in real time. Turning now to SASE, Zscaler dominates with a 21% global market share and an even more commanding 34% share in the security service edge, that SSE subsegment. Analysts from Del Oro and Gartner repeatedly place Zscaler in the top right, highest on both strategy and execution, with consistent accolades in their Magic Quadrants. And here the numbers back this up. Zscaler's cloud ARR grew over 22% year over year, reaching nearly $2.9 billion. Its SASE market is forecast to hit $30 billion by 2030, and with Zscaler poised to capture a leading slice here. Zscaler has proven it's not just riding the trend, it's going to disrupt it and grab even more market share. That strengthened positioning and the second fastest revenue growth comes at a premium for the shares, though. Even adjusting for that growth, shares are the third most expensive in the group, but it's hard to argue with the return. Shares of Zscaler are up 74% this year alone, and I'm up 85% since I started buying. And here, what I think is going to be the largest cybersecurity company someday, CrowdStrike Holdings, ticker CRWD, positioning itself in the era of AI. That's because not only does CrowdStrike lead in several of the industry segments like endpoint security and SIEM, it's building the future of AI cybersecurity that ties all of these segments together with its Charlotte AI, an agentic cybersecurity system that's redefining how security operations work. Unlike traditional AI tools that require prompts and manual interpretation, Charlotte operates like a teammate, automating investigations, generating scripts, and making recommendations in natural language. That means faster threat response, lower workloads, and more scalable defense. The company's XDR platform Falcon is now the most adopted in the industry, with 60% of customers using 5 or more modules and nearly half using 6 or more, a sign of deep customer entrenchment. So at this point, CrowdStrike is unstoppable. The company captures over 1 trillion security events per day, fueling both Charlotte's AI learning and the real-time threat graph that underpins this detection capabilities. So in an environment where every vendor is trying to bolt AI onto its legacy tools, CrowdStrike has built its platform around it. That structural advantage in data, automation, and agentic AI makes it not just a leader, but a category definer in next-generation cybersecurity. Here we see the fundamental analysis for each of these, along with 2 cybersecurity stocks, SentinelOne and Cloudflare, that I didn't highlight. reflecting that super strong outlook for the cybersecurity industry. Revenue growth is very good here across the board. Only Okta is forecast under 10% growth, but then is also the cheapest on the list and has a clear runway in its segment. While Cloudflare is expected to post the strongest revenue growth at 26%, it didn't make my top 5 picks for its insane valuation, even when adjusting for that growth. But also, as I'm going to show you next, doesn't really have a strong competitive advantage in any one segment. CrowdStrike and Zscaler both book industry-leading growth, and while operating profitability is weak and the shares are tragically expensive, they both have durable advantages in their product segments that I think is going to drive that future growth. And Fortinet here isn't particularly fast growing, but that operating margin is outstanding, converting 31% of its sales into operating earnings, while most of the group is posting negative operating profitability. More important, though, than that valuation and the other numbers is where each of these companies competes and their leadership in the cybersecurity segments. We've already seen the forecast for an average 10% annualized revenue growth across the industry, growth which I think is underrated, but that average hides a giant gap within those segments. Legacy pieces of cybersecurity, like firewall and analytics, are expected to grow at a much slower pace compared to cloud and service edge, or SASE, both of which could grow at a 15% pace. And so parsing out each company's products and services, we see juggernaut Palo Alto Networks with the best all-around exposure here and leadership in 4 key areas, including faster growth cloud and SASE. While Okta doesn't have the lineups these others do, it's one of the only 2 players in that identity and access management space, setting it up to dominate that segment. Zscaler also has a strong competitive advantage in those faster growing segments of cloud and service edge. Then CrowdStrike, my largest holding in cybersecurity, may not have the lead in those faster growing segments, but I think its AI and agentic is where the future growth is going to be, and I want to be positioned for that. Here, while Fortinet doesn't have a strong competitive advantage in the industry, it's hard to ignore the results with that industry-leading profitability and the lower price. Get your free report and see the stocks I'm buying for the next 30 years, my forever stocks, with the link in the description below. Don't forget to join the Let's Talk Money community by tapping that subscribe button and clicking the bell notification.